some screaming heavy metal! We rock!
But the evil that men do lives on.
We gonna bang your head!
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, a hard-hitting show featuring all things hard rock and heavy metal. And now here are your hosts, the Twins of Chaos, Clint Switzer and Paul Lagana.
Welcome, one and all, to the Music Mania podcast. Merry Christmas, Clint Switzer, Paul Lagana here, and we are so great to be back. It has been a while. It's been a minute.
Yes, it has been too long, Clint, but here we are.
Here we are, and I tell you what, we are coming with a huge interview this week. We were at, this is a couple days ago we recorded this, we were at the big Queensryche Armored Saint show at Sandoval in Overland Park, and really this show, we have Phil and Jeff Duncan from Armored Saint. We interviewed them at the same time after the show. We're going to go to that here in just a minute, but we want to talk about what a great show that was, man.
Oh,
both bands.
Absolutely, and guys, if you haven't seen Todd LaTorre yet, obviously lead singer for Queensryche as well, but that guy absolutely killed it. I mean, Jeff Tate, who?
Yeah,
Clint,
that's strong, and I agree with you, though, and I think that we were trying to bang this drum because we had Michael Wilton on several months ago, back this summer, talking about Todd LaTorre and how people are skeptical. When you replace a legend like Jeff Tate, there's going to be skepticism as far as, hey, that's big shoes to fill, and Todd LaTorre sounds wonderful. I mean, he hits the notes he hits, the way that he sings the classics. They have a new really good album out as well, and they played some songs from that.
And I don't mean that as a negative or a slight to Jeff Tate. Obviously,
we've had him on as well.
Yeah, and he's a legend. But I'll tell you, I mean, obviously they had to, go forward after the breakup, and they couldn't have got a better guy.
And Armored Saint, absolutely killing it. Great guy. This was my first time seeing Armored Saint. Your first time seeing Armored Saint,
well.
And they were amazing. John Bush's voice is as good as ever. They just kill it. Yeah. I just love that band. I've always have. From the March of the Saint back in the 84, I think, up into Delirious Nomad, Symbol of Salvation, and now their latest album, Win Hands Down. We're going to be talking with Phil Sandoval, Jeff Duncan about that as we were able to catch them. After the show, they were gracious enough to stick around. It was a late night for us and a late night for them because we didn't get that interview until about midnight.
It was well worth it, though. I'll tell you. I mean, those guys absolutely killed it. We can't wait to let you guys hear that.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and head to that. This was a couple days ago, guys. Thanks for joining us here, Music Mania Podcast. We're going to our interview with Phil Sandoval and Jeff Duncan from Sandoval this week. All right, we'll go ahead and start here, guys. We are, after the show here at Sandoval, Armored Saint and Queensryche. The tour's winding down here. We were here with Phil Sandoval, and we are here, of course, with Jeff Duncan from Armored Saint. What a great show tonight. Tour's winding down, man. How's it been going out there with Queensryche? It's been, start with you, Phil. I mean, it's a great show tonight, but how's the tour been as a whole?
Thank you very much. The tour's been amazing. Queensryche are a bunch of great guys. The band is amazing. Todd sings his ass off every night, and the people have been accepting Armored Saint, and we're just playing Win Hands Down, opening a track, and that's the latest album we have from Armored Saint. Pick it up, and we also have a brand new album, live album, coming up in February. You could pre-order at www.pledgemusic.com. And I want to say that everybody's been really cool, and this has been one of the best tours that Armored Saint has been on, and I'm not kidding. Rock and roll, man.
Well, great, Phil. You just went through my whole list here, so thank you, guys. No, that's great. I was going to ask you about the live album that's coming out, and we'll go to Jeff on that. Jeff, this live album is a long time in the making. I think the band has one live album. It was from the early 90s, but this is the one the fans are going to want to get their hands on. You guys did the Pledge Music route. Did this tell you a lot about what kind of fans you guys have that came in and wanted to see this, pledged the money, made it happen, and now it's going to be coming out? It's going to be, what's it, Carpe Noctem? Is that?
Yeah, Carpe Noctem's the live album. The last thing Armored Saint put out that was live was the Saints Will Conquer EP. Back in '88, which is actually the first tour I ever did with Armored Saint. But the new album is the new live album is some from two different shows we did in Germany. One in Aschaffenburg and the other one at the Wacken Festival in Germany. So the tracks came out really good, and we're really excited about it. It's just nice to put something else out live from the band, and there's never been anything live put out really of Armored Saint with the lineup that it's had since 1990, which is the current lineup that still exists now.
Well, this is great. I mean, you've seen what the fan reaction's been. I mean, if tonight's any indication, I mean, people, you guys have always just sort of had this niche in metal, a very hardcore fan base everywhere you guys go. I mean, playing with Queensryche here, but you guys have been on the road really since reuniting in 2000. I mean, what's it like to be able to go out there and still play these shows, still have the fan support you guys have? I mean, and still sounding as good as you do. I mean, you guys are just killing it out there.
Thank you very much. It's been great. We're just getting into our instruments just as much as we did when we first started. Personally, I love the guitar more now as I'm getting more into it, and I try to expand that through my playing with Armored Saint. And it's just been a pleasure. We just try to play the songs as well as we can each and every night. And we do it, and we just rock it out, man. Can you deliver? And Armored Saint does.
Absolutely. Phil, I want to ask you, because you get pretty much my age, so I want to ask you about the 80s metal scene, because I actually grew up in L.A. as well. So tell us a little bit about that and how that was back in the 80s.
And before you answer that, you guys are all older than me. I'm just throwing that out there. You said you're the same age as Phil here, and probably Jeff too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So just describe what it was like back then.
Well, when we played, the Troubadour had seats, and back in the 80s, and after Armored Saint started playing, people started getting crazy, and the mosh pit hadn't been invented yet, so people were like headbanging and stuff like that, so they had to get rid of the seats at the Troubadour, so that's how it started with Armored Saint. But we also grew up with Metallica, and Jeff Duncan played in a band called Odin.
Oh, absolutely. I remember Odin.
We all were like Motley Crue, and just all these bands were coming up in the LA music scene, and there was just something in the air that hasn't been established since then, and it's kind of missing. But I don't think it could actually be happen again the way it did back in the 80s. And back then, people actually got signed to major labels and stuff, and they've actually bought records, but they don't do that anymore as much, but because of the internet. But there was something definitely different back in the 80s, and that you can't really capture nowadays, and it's just a whole different scene nowadays.
Well, you talk about scenes, and Jeff, I mean, you played obviously with Odin, a band that was very different, as was Armored Saint, as was Testament, as was Anthrax, as was Megadeth, as was Metallica, things that were coming out from LA and also the Bay Area. What you joined Armored Saint in the late 80s. What was it like in LA at that time, kind of competing with the hair metal scene? Because it was so much different. You guys were so much different than that. And you had, like you talked about, Phil, you had Motley Crue, you had Poison, you had Faster Pussycat, you had Enough's Enough and LA Guns. You guys were so much different than that. What was it like kind of competing against those kind of bands back in the 80s in LA?
Well, back then there wasn't really a sense of competition. I guess there was, but back then, every band was kind of like a gang. Like, you didn't really play with anybody else. You had your band, and that was your gang. So, I think, being young like that, and everybody, reasonably proficient at their instruments, at the time for a bunch of young dudes, had a self-confidence that definitely borderlined on cockiness, So, I mean, me personally, I never really looked at things competitively. I just thought we were the best, and like a lot of bands did, But that was, when I was in Odin. But, and I'm not making this up. My favorite band on the LA scene was Armored Saint. So that's the band that I really loved. I thought, Armored Saint's cool. Plus, we were friends. We did a lot of gigs together, and we were friends. We hung out. So, you could probably see how that transition happened. But, as far as competition, it was there. But, everybody was just really cocky. So everybody thought they were the best. So nobody was, I think, consciously competing,
Well, Phil, there's your endorsement. The check's in the mail, Phil, and from Jeff on that. Armored Saint was his favorite band. I want to ask you about, this has become an answer to a metal trivia question, but one of the craziest tours, I don't know why this sort of jumps out at me, but in 1985, I guess it would have been Delirious Nomad. You guys toured with Wasp and Metallica. Wasp headlined that tour. Can you just talk about that 85 tour and what went into that? I mean, Metallica was off Ride the Lightning. They weren't quite as established yet. Wasp was, I guess, Last Command for them, and you guys Delirious Nomad. What a crazy tour that must have been.
The Wasp headlined because they were bigger than everybody else, physically. No, just kidding. Plus, they bought a lot of meat that they threw at the audience, and they got thrown back at them. But that's another story. But yeah, they were just like Blackie Lawless. You know, all of them were like 6 feet tall, man, and then they wear boots. You know, that were 70. So those guys were tall. But at the time, Metallica was breaking new ground, and we were friends with Metallica, and like Armored Saint was not a thrash band, but we were a metal band. We were influenced by the European, you know, like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, and just the culture of the time. Mad Max was a influence, you know, the movie, and so we kind of had that going on, and Lars actually liked our Armored Saint, so we did this tour, and that's when the mosh pit started to happen. You know what I mean?
It's a good time to start.
Yeah, and but at the same time, it was kind of like us and Metallica. We're just doing the metal, and Wasp was more theatrical. You know, they actually had a girl, you know, that bondaged, you know, like strapped up, you know, like she was being crucified with meat and stuff. But you can't have that nowadays. I mean, it's just like, but it was a breaking grounds kind of a tour that never ever happened again. And I mean, there was barriers broken. People were like mosh pitting, and we were shocked. You know what I mean? At first. And we had to like play to that kind of audience, and we held our own. Armored Saint held its own, you know, and you know, we've always been a metal band with songs and good music. And John Bush was a great singer, you know, and on the EP and even on everything, it still stands to this day.
Absolutely.
Well, let me talk a little bit about the period there from 92 to 2000 when you guys actually kind of, you know, took a little bit of a break.
Right.
What actually made you guys start back up, and what actually happened to where you guys wanted to take a break on that?
Well, John got asked to join Anthrax when we were in Hawaii, of all things. We were playing with Overkill, and you know, I didn't even know this, but we were at a elementary school doing this session and telling people about the music business, and John told us that he was going to join Anthrax, and there was nothing we can do, and we were kind of on a roll with Symbol of Salvation, the album, which was produced by Dave Jordan, and so everybody was a little shocked, you know, so we had to take a seat back and just do our own thing, right. You know, and we all kind of like went our own separate ways, and then come around 1999, we heard the Prince song, and it's Party Like 1999, and then we said, let's party again, and Armored Saint started again. Just kidding.
Well, it's been a great run, and I have to, you know, my co-host Paul, I'm more of an outsider here than just an age, because my co-host Paul is also from LA here. You guys are from LA. You're an LA band. We're sitting here at Konza Hall, Overland Park, Kansas. It's a paltry 18 degrees outside. We're going to send you guys back to your tour bus here in just a minute and try to get you guys some sleep, get back on the road. But my God, the weather. How do you feel about you're in the Midwest? There's not much to do. Jeff, I mean, my God, it's 18 degrees outside. You're properly dressed, at least.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just hella cold, you know. I don't know what to say about that, you know. I mean, being from Southern California, you know, it takes some. It's a little shock to the system. Plus, I live in Las Vegas now, so I live in Nevada, so I'm used to that. So, yeah, when it gets this cold, it's a little shocking. You know, it's cool, but
hey, Paul's lived here almost 30 years. He's never acclimated.
I will never get used to it, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not used to it at all. Not at all.
Well, guys, I tell you what. Before we let you go, we gotta ask you here, Phil. I mean, the tour comes to an end. I think tomorrow. By the time this airs, the tour will have come to an end. Obviously, we got the live album coming out in 2017. I'm gonna guess. And then what's next for you guys as far as touring and other projects coming up here in the year 2017?
2017 is going to be a dream. but we're going to be doing some dates in March, right? Right, Jeff?
Yeah, we're doing some. Looks like we're going to be doing some European dates in March, and then we're going to probably come back, do some Midwestern dates in May.
Excellent. Well, we're going to be looking for that, guys. It is late. People that are hearing this right now, it's after midnight. You guys took the time to come join us. Cannot thank you enough for being the guests here on Music Mania Podcast with Clint, Switzer, and Paul Lagana. Guys, good luck on the road. We're going to catch up with you. If you come back to the Midwest, we're going to hit you up.
Absolutely.
Have a great one, and Happy New Year to you guys. Merry Christmas, all that stuff. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
All right, happy holidays to all the metal fans, and thank you so much.
Yes! Thank you guys so much for listening to our interview. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We were able to catch both Phil and Jeff, and it was kind of a first time for us where we had multiple people on at the same time trying to pass the mic around. Hey, it worked out great. Thanks so much for those guys. Love Armored Saint. New live album, Carpe Noctem, coming out here. It is, I believe you can go to their website right now and pre-order the thing. Go do it. Love Armored Saint. Love this band. Rain of Fire, baby.
John Bush, the vocals were unbelievable. Obviously,
and what
the
a
whole
guitar
band.
tandem Phil and Jeff are.
Oh yeah, and it couldn't have been better guys. Obviously, you guys heard the interview; it was spectacular. Those guys are just as gracious as they were with their time. They were absolutely killed it.
And that's after a show. When you play a show and then another band, and Queensryche goes on, it's another hour and a half later than they had played. They stuck around, and they did a meet and greet. They met every fan in there, and it was a great show. Highly recommend Queensryche. They really jumped around in their set. I think they covered 7 albums. I counted 7 different albums, from Empire to Rage for Order to Warning to the EP to, of course, Operation Mindcrime, and I think they even got something from Promised Land in there, and then their new one, Condition Human, and Armored Saint. They had a great 10-song set as well, guys. You know what? It's winter. There's nothing else to do. Hit up a show. I know it's Christmas time. We can't thank you guys enough for listening. It's just been a great ride, and we had to go a couple months without doing a show, and here we are back. We're gonna have more time, more shows coming up here in the winter and spring.
Back and better than ever, guys. So hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, every social media you can find. We are there. And we were going to be back and better than ever in 2017 as well.
That's right, my friend. Great to see you.
Absolutely.
Subscribe to us on YouTube. Our show, every show is on iTunes as well, guys. So whatever your preferred listening method is, we can't thank you enough. Can't thank Phil Sandoval, Jeff Duncan enough for joining us from Armored Saint. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the Music Mania Podcast.